There comes a moment in every person's life when the illusion finally breaks. The people you trusted disappoint you. The plans you believed in collapsed. The identity you spent years building suddenly feels fragile. And for a brief moment, standing in the ruins of certainty, you see something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The truth. Not the truth about the world. The truth about yourself. Most people fear this moment. They call it failure, loss, bad luck, a crisis. But the Stoics saw something different. They understood that life occasionally strips away everything false so that something real can finally emerge. Because what falls apart was never as strong as you believed. And what survives reveals who you truly are. The greatest transformations do not begin with success. They begin with exposure. The moment when excuses stop working. The moment when distractions lose their power. The moment when you can no longer hide from the patterns that have quietly shaped your life. Most people run from this moment. The few who embrace it become unrecognizable. Not because life becomes easier. Because they become stronger. And that strength begins the instant they stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?"
Welcome to True Stoic Journal, the path to inner control.
When everything begins falling apart, most people focus on what they have lost. The Stoics focused on what had been revealed. There is a profound difference between those two perspectives. One creates suffering. The other creates wisdom. Think about the moments in your life that hurt the most. A betrayal. A rejection. A failure. A disappointment you never expected. At the time, it felt like something was being taken away from you. But when you look back honestly, many of those moments were exposing something that had already been weak. A relationship built on illusion. A belief built on insecurity. An identity built on approval. The collapse did not create the weakness. It revealed it. This is why Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to see things as they truly are rather than as he wished them to be. Reality is not cruel. Reality is clear. And clarity is often uncomfortable before it becomes useful. Most people spend years protecting an image of themselves that no longer serves them. The version that always needs to be liked. The version that avoids conflict. The version that seeks validation. The version that sacrifices authenticity for acceptance. Over time, these patterns become so familiar that they feel natural. Yet familiarity does not make them healthy. Many people mistake comfort for growth. They remain trapped in habits that limit them because those habits feel safe. The Stoics understood that growth begins where comfort ends. Not reckless discomfort. Purposeful discomfort. The willingness to confront what is true, even when it challenges everything you thought you knew. That is why collapse can become such a powerful teacher. When life removes your distractions, your patterns become impossible to ignore. You begin noticing how often fear directs your decisions. How often does approval influence your behavior? How often insecurity disguises itself as caution? How often do you betray your own values simply to avoid temporary discomfort? This awareness changes everything. Because a problem cannot be solved while it remains hidden. Once seen clearly, it becomes something you can work with. Something you can transform. The next lesson is one most people never fully learn. Pain is information. Not identity. Many people experience failure and immediately turn it into a definition of who they are. They fail once and believe they are a failure. They are rejected and believe they are unworthy. They are betrayed and believe they are broken. The event becomes identity. The experience becomes self-perception. The Stoics rejected this entirely. They understood that events are teachers, not definitions. A setback contains information. A mistake contains information. A disappointment contains information. The question is whether you extract the lesson or carry the wound. Most people carry the wound. The Stoic extracts the lesson. That lesson becomes a strength. This is why resilience is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to transform difficulty into wisdom. Every challenge contains a hidden question. What is this trying to teach me? What weakness is being revealed? What assumption needs correction? What behavior requires change? People who ask these questions grow. People who avoid them repeat the same cycles forever. Another powerful lesson emerges when you stop reacting immediately to everything that happens. Modern life encourages constant reaction. Every notification demands attention. Every opinion demands a response. Every inconvenience demands emotion. Most people live as prisoners of impulse. The Stoics lived differently. They created space between event and response. In that space, power exists. Because when you react automatically, your emotions control you. When you pause, observe, and choose deliberately, you control yourself. And self-control is the foundation of every meaningful achievement. This is where silence becomes valuable. Not silence as weakness. Silence as discipline. Most people speak because they are uncomfortable with uncertainty. They explain, defend, justify, react. They believe every situation requires a response. The Stoics understood that not every battle deserves engagement. Not every opinion deserves correction. Not every criticism deserves attention. Sometimes silence communicates more strength than words ever could. Because silence creates observation. And observation creates understanding. When you stop rushing to respond, you begin noticing things others miss. Patterns become visible. Motives become clearer. Intentions reveal themselves. People often tell you exactly who they are. The problem is that most people are too busy reacting to pay attention. Observation transforms relationships. Observation transforms decisions. Observation transforms self-awareness. And self-awareness is where real power begins. But observation alone is not enough. The next step is reconstruction. Once old patterns are revealed, they must be replaced. Many people attempt transformation through motivation. The Stoics relied on discipline. Motivation changes. Discipline remains. You do not become stronger through inspiration. You become stronger through repetition. Every time you choose patience instead of impulse. Every time you choose truth instead of comfort. Every time you choose responsibility instead of excuses. Every time you choose action instead of procrastination. You strengthen the architecture of your character. This process is rarely dramatic. Most transformations are invisible. No applause. No recognition. No audience. Just daily decisions made consistently. The world celebrates outcomes. The Stoics focused on process. Because outcomes are uncertain. The process belongs to you. This is why true confidence feels different from ego. The ego depends on recognition. Confidence depends on evidence. Evidence created through repeated action. Repeated discipline. Repeated integrity. Repeated courage. Confidence is not believing you will never fail. It is knowing you can recover when you do. And that changes the way you approach life. You stop fearing challenges. You stop fearing uncertainty. You stop fearing temporary setbacks. Because your trust no longer depends on circumstances. It depends on your ability to adapt. This leads to one of the most important realizations in Stoicism. Your greatest power is not control over events. It is control over yourself. You cannot control how others behave. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control unexpected losses. You cannot control the opinions of strangers. But you can control your response. You can control your standards. You can control your effort. You can control your character. And that is enough. More than enough. Because people who master themselves become difficult to manipulate. They become difficult to intimidate. Difficult to discourage. Difficult to break. Not because they avoid pain. Because they understand it. They know that every challenge carries information. Every obstacle contains an opportunity. Every collapse reveals something valuable. The obstacle becomes the teacher. The pain becomes the lesson. The difficulty becomes the path. This is exactly what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote that the obstacle in the path becomes the path. What stands in the way becomes the way. The event itself is not the enemy. The refusal to learn from it is. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Life will continue testing you. There will always be uncertainty. Always setbacks. Always moments that challenge your assumptions. But every challenge offers a choice. React or reflect. Complain or learn. Collapse or rebuild. The Stoics chose rebuilding. Again and again. Not because it was easy. Because it was necessary. And every time they rebuilt, they became stronger than before. That same opportunity exists for you. Right now. Not after circumstances improve. Not after fear disappears. Not after life becomes easier. Now. Because transformation begins the moment you decide that what happened to you matters less than what you choose to become because of it. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe to True Stoic Journal for more timeless lessons on wisdom, resilience, self-mastery, and inner peace. Remember this, your strongest self is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is being built in every moment you choose awareness over impulse, discipline over comfort, and growth over fear. What breaks you can also build you. The difference is whether you treat adversity as a punishment or as a teacher. And the people who become unshakable are always the ones who choose to learn.